Hey everyone, I'm Mariana, and today I am here to talk about Black Mirror. This is the series that I have gotten the most amount of questions about over the past few years on my channel. So many of you have been saying, Mariana, this is exactly the type of thing that you're into. You love sci-fi, you love dark stories, you love stuff that leaves you thinking about it for days. Why haven't you watched Black Mirror yet? I don't have a good answer. I don't know why it took me so long to finally get to Black Mirror, but I am now officially caught up because what have I been watching for most of this month? I have been on a Black Mirror marathon. You know, the cheerful kind of show you're supposed to watch during quarantine. And you guys were right. Of course, I absolutely loved it. I found it fascinating. This is exactly my kind of thing. But something I found interesting about the reactions to Black Mirror is that everybody seems to connect with different episodes. I have seen so many ranking lists, and every single one of them is so different. One person will rank certain episodes at the top of their list, and then the next list will have the same exact episodes on the bottom. So that is why today I'm going to give you my ranking of every single currently released episode from worst to best. 23 episodes. Let's do this. Here we go. Starting at the bottom, there are actually only 2 episodes in this entire series that I actively disliked. And at number 23, my least favorite of this whole thing is Crocodile. There are a few other episodes in the series that explore that downward spiral of a person. However, in Crocodile, this just made almost no sense to me. The lead character's motivations here are to keep herself and her family as far away as possible from any kind of consequences that are related to a certain thing that happens in the beginning of the episode. This actually sounds pretty reasonable, but she just goes from 0 to 100 in a heartbeat, and it just keeps snowballing into something that's just worse and worse. You can kind of tell where this is potentially going to go, and then the show doesn't really surprise you with that. Well, I guess it does surprise you because the most awful thing that happens in this episode is kind of turned into a really dark joke. I was not a fan of any of that. I didn't feel like there was a point to anything that was happening. The technology that they use in this episode that can access a person's memories is pretty cool, but overall, as a story, I thought this was kind of a mess and just not on par with the rest of the series. At number 22, I have the Waldo moment. Actually, this is one of those episodes that most people agree on because not many people love this one, and there is a reason for that. It's just not that exciting. It's not that well written. It is trying to say some interesting things about the political system of today and about how the persona and making an impression can affect the voters, which, once again, sounds like a great premise. But the whole digital blue bear who swears and is generally a troll trying to go up against an actual candidate, it wasn't that interesting to me. And it also didn't come together as a story. It felt too long and felt like it didn't know which route it wanted to take. And once again, just wasn't a big fan of this episode. The next few episodes I'm going to talk about are pretty middle of the road for me. There were some ideas in them that I thought were worth exploring. There were things I liked about them, but overall, I just didn't love them, and there were issues that I had with these episodes. At number 21, I have Striking Vipers. This was the episode that was the most neither here nor there for me. I just felt like it was okay. The main issue that I had with this episode is that it seemed to borrow from better episodes so much. However, it just didn't make it work as well as those better episodes. It is more about the romance side of things, and once again, I think the series does it so much better in other episodes. And it also tries to tie these themes in with technology. And while it does explore an interesting angle that has to do with virtual reality, it just didn't do much for me, and I was hoping they were going to take it somewhere interesting towards the end, but it kind of remained very level. Wasn't really my thing, as you can tell. I don't even have that much to say about it, which is a problem when it comes to Black Mirror. That is not how I should walk away from a Black Mirror episode. So yeah, this one was just okay. At number 20, I have Archangel. This one had an interesting combination of things, which is overprotective parenting and technology, and that seems like a great mashup. However, it didn't go anywhere interesting with it. It was so incredibly predictable. You could tell where this was going from the very beginning. You could see everything coming from a mile away. It's not a bad episode. It is not a bad story. It is interesting, but there was just something missing from it. I just have come to expect more from this series, and therefore it just doesn't rank very highly for me. But I did somewhat enjoy it and found it pretty interesting, so there's that. Next up, at number 19, I have Rachel, Jack, and Ashley 2, also known as the Miley Cyrus episode. I actually don't have that many issues with this episode. It is definitely the most fun, if you can apply that word to Black Mirror episode of the entire series. But that is kind of the issue. This episode is not bad by any means, and it actually offers a perspective the show has not addressed before, the whole entertainment industry versus the talent situation and how it just squeezes everything out of the talent just for money as much as possible, no matter what effect it has on the talent. And it is an interesting perspective to explore. I do hope they touch on that some more in future episodes. However, why did they have to make it so obviously entertaining and give it this teen movie vibe? I guess it kind of makes sense because it does seem to be targeted towards teenagers, and the star of the episode is a teen idol in this situation. But it just didn't feel like a Black Mirror episode to me. That's kind of it. It just felt like a darker, slightly darker, not even that much darker version of a teen movie. And that's not why I watch Black Mirror. As I said, I don't think this is a bad episode, and I actually don't understand the hate that it gets. It's not awful by any means. But for me, it's not a favorite either, just because this is not the kind of stuff I'm here for. At number 18, I have White Bear. And this one is interesting, first of all, because you absolutely cannot talk about it without spoiling it. But it basically revolves around a woman who wakes up, doesn't know what's going on, who she is. Why are people filming her with their phones? She's running from people. She has no idea what's going on. And eventually you get the reveal of what is actually happening, which feels like it's supposed to change your mind about things and change the situation, except for it really doesn't. At least it did not for me. So I was very conflicted about this episode, and I felt like the ending was just generally so awful. Not awful as in a bad ending, but awful as in actually awful, that I wasn't really sure what it was trying to say about the characters and the viewers, to be honest. Some of you I know love this episode, but this one was just not entirely my thing, and I wish they worked the story a little bit more. At number 17, I have The Entire History of You. Now, I know some people think this is one of the best of the series. For me, I thought it was okay. The main issue I had with this is that I absolutely hated the characters. I thought they were just kind of really awful, so it was hard for me to feel for them. And yes, eventually, I guess I empathized a little bit with what was going on, but in general, they're just not the people I wanted to root for, and especially the guy in it was just such a jerk from the very beginning. I was having a hard time with that, even though the technology here is very interesting, and the whole idea of being able to access all of the memories, all of the conversations, all of your past, everything you've seen at any moment seems like it would be helpful, but really, when you think about it, it's just going to make every single argument worse. So yeah, I liked the idea of it, but the characters were just no. Now we are really getting into the good stuff, because the next portion is a large part of the list with episodes that I really enjoyed. They may not have made my top 5, but they are still episodes that I thought were fascinating. I would absolutely recommend watching every single one of these because they deserve to be seen, and I thoroughly enjoyed every single one of these. So at number 16, I have Playtest, and this one is a solid horror movie. I actually had a lot of fun with this episode. Here we have this guy who decides to make some extra cash by testing a new and exciting virtual reality video game that will base itself on your personal fears, which sounds like that wouldn't be a problem at all, right? This one was actually really entertaining and creative for the majority of it until it got really freaking dark at the end and it really stopped being entertaining. But that's not the problem. I thought that was great, except for it pulls a certain trope, a certain storytelling trope that I absolutely hate. And I can't tell you what it is because that will completely give away the ending. That was kind of a bummer for me. However, I did think it was very entertaining and very enjoyable. It was just a nice little horror thriller in the middle of Black Mirror, which is already pretty horrifying. But this was more traditionally horror, which I thought was a fun direction to go. At number 15, I have Men Against Fire, which seems to be like an episode people can't agree on, and I haven't really found a lot of people who loved this one. I thought it was really interesting because it was taking propaganda to the next level, and it certainly made some callbacks to past famous propaganda instances. This is also an episode that has to do with war and military, which is something I find interesting in storytelling because just the stakes are so high. The only issue I had here was that the lead actor just did not match the supporting cast. The supporting cast was better than the lead actor, in my opinion, and I wish they picked somebody else for the lead role because I felt like we needed some more powerful acting there. I don't know how else to say this because this sounds really mean, but unfortunately in this case, the supporting cast was stronger than the lead, and that is not what you want to see. At number 14, I have Black Museum, which is just Easter egg central. If you're a fan of Easter eggs, if you're a fan of picking up on references to past episodes, and maybe even potentially some future episodes, you are going to love Black Museum. It does have a few stories that are intertwining, and eventually they lead into what the main deal is with this episode. So you have to be a little bit patient with the story because for a while I was sitting there thinking, where are we even going with this? Why are there people telling the story about other people? Can't we just have that story be the episode? Just be patient. It all leads somewhere, and it is a pretty interesting episode. Once again, don't want to ruin it. Really enjoyed this one, and I thought the payoff was definitely worth the buildup. At number 14, I have the very first episode of this entire series, the national anthem, where it all started, and man, is this a dark episode. This one is one of the few episodes that doesn't really feature any crazy new technology. It features technology that we already have, and just showcases the effect that it can have on a person and the effect we can have on a person and where it all leads. As I mentioned, it's very dark, and I'm sure you've heard of it. It's the one with the prime minister and the pig. And while on its surface, it seems like a pretty simple concept, the more you think about it and the more you apply these ideas to our world, the more messed up it gets and the more you realize that, the future is now and we're all screwed. At number 12, I have a very popular favorite, and that is Shut Up and Dance. This is a very fun thriller episode, and even if you aren't somebody who is doing something sketchy online, it will still make you second guess your online activities and consider who might be watching right now. Here we have a few people who are being blackmailed for their activities, and you eventually find out what those activities are, which is where, of course, this episode gets darker and darker. And while the ending wasn't my favorite part of this whole thing, this was such an engaging and fast-paced and entertaining thriller of an episode. I totally understand why people love this one. At number 11, I have Smithereens. This one actually really surprised me because I did not expect to be as upset by this episode as I was by the end of it. It made me pretty emotional. It is one of those stories that holds on to an important piece of information until much, much later in the episode, and that's why it kind of starts feeling like it's going for a bit too long at a certain point. But man, it's worth the wait. It also made me seriously consider turning off my notifications on my phone, just in general, turning all of them off, because this episode has to do with those. It generally has to do with social media, and yep, you guessed it, it gets dark. Also, a fantastic performance by Andrew Scott, which I expected, but it was even better than I thought it would be. At number 10, I have Hated in the Nation, which might as well be a film because I'm pretty sure it's about an hour and a half. It's one of the longest episodes, if not the longest. This one also has to do with social media. Hated in the Nation kept me at the edge of my seat the entire time. This was so fascinating. I was interested in every single thing that was happening. You have the whole internet and social media aspect of it. You have an investigation. You have the near future technology aspect, all of that coming together. But then, of course, you're going to end up with some moral questions and dilemmas as well. It is a wonderful thriller, and futuristic thriller is what you're here for. I guarantee you would enjoy this one. At number 9, I have White Christmas, the Don Draper episode, and boy, does he have a fun role here. This is also one of those episodes where it's kind of hard to tell where it's going in the beginning. It has a few different stories that come together in the end eventually, and the payoff is absolutely worth it, even though it might take you a while to get to that point where you understand how this all comes together. This is also the first episode where we are introduced to the concept of cookies, which are copies of human consciousness. And that is something that comes up throughout Black Mirror after White Christmas a few times. It's one of my favorite technologies that Black Mirror explores, not only because it's an interesting idea on its own, but also because it brings up some interesting moral questions, which is a combination that I really like in my sci-fi. At number 8, I have 15 Million Merits, and this one was dark. And I don't mean just dark in general, because that's kind of the theme with Black Mirror overall, but even for Black Mirror, this episode was dark. I thought this was one of the darkest episodes of the entire series because the implications of this are they're kind of a lot. I was definitely left with a lot of heaviness on my mind and on my heart after finishing this episode. You have people doing these ridiculous repetitive activities that they don't necessarily enjoy to get points so they can buy useless stuff. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? But then if you get a large amount of points, you can get a ticket that can potentially get you out of this situation. Plus, let's not forget about the fantastic performances from Daniel Kaluuya and Jessica Brown Findlay. Both of them are just so good in this episode. Probably my favorite performances of this entire series. Definitely top 5, both of them, because it's just on a whole new level. And the monologue that Daniel Kaluuya delivers, it gave me chills. At number 7, I have Hang the DJ. This episode, man, I have a complicated relationship with this episode. So this is the episode where a digital coach selects people to date each other, putting an expiration date on their relationship. And the point is that while you date a bunch of people who are not great for you, you eventually get matched with your perfect partner. This episode was well on the way to becoming my favorite episode of this entire series. I was loving it. I thought the chemistry between the leads was amazing. I thought the sarcasm that the writers injected about relationships in general and the dating world of tomorrow, so to speak, in particular, was just so perfect. The story was definitely working for me. It was shot beautifully. I was loving it. But then the ending happened and oh man, I have not hated an ending this much in a while. And I know some of you might say, well, if you had such a strong reaction to it, then it probably means it was effective, so it should just be top 5 for you. Well, yes, but also I rank these as far as my preference goes, and the ending kind of almost killed the entire episode for me. It didn't, because I still ended up rating it really highly. I ended up giving it a 9 out of 10 on Letterboxd. By the way, if you want to see my individual ratings for all of these episodes, I've been rating them and writing quick reviews on them on Letterboxd, so check it out. I'm Impression Blend on Letterboxd, of course. But yeah, I still ended up giving it a 9 out of 10, but this was going to be my favorite episode, and then I'm still angry about it. I really still am. Let me know if any of you hated this ending as much as I did. Coming in at number 6 is Metalhead. I know this is kind of a controversial choice because apparently almost everybody does not like this episode, and I don't know why. I kind of loved it. This is a post-apocalyptic episode where a small group of people goes in search of something, we don't know what it is, and encounter some really murderous metal AI dogs, and it's not a good situation. It turns into this really fast-paced thriller. It's a pretty short episode, so it's just go, go, go the entire time. And for the longest time, you don't know what's going on and why. And I can understand that this can be frustrating to the viewers. However, I don't think it matters as much in this particular episode as it would matter in others. That's just my personal opinion. I know I'm making an exception to my own rules because generally I don't like when withholding information is the source of tension in a story. However, the action and the crazy murder machine dogs are the source of tension in this story. A popular criticism that I've seen of this episode is that it doesn't really have much commentary. It doesn't have much to say. It doesn't really feel like a Black Mirror episode because of all of that. And I have to disagree. Once again, can't tell you exactly what I mean because that would spoil the entire thing. But I feel like this episode has a lot to say about humanity and about that contrast between calculating machines and us as people. And to add to all of that, the episode is in striking black and white. So yes, I loved Metalhead. I thought it was a great episode. And the only complaint that I have about it is I wish we had a little bit of context about these crazy murderous AI dogs, because why do they exist? What are they doing here? What is this world? When is this? Just a little bit. I don't need a whole explainer, but just some information. What's going on? Just for context. And with that, we have finally arrived at my top 5. I can tell you that every single one of these 5 episodes have stayed with me and are going to stay with me for a very, very long time. Each of these stories are very special and very powerful, and I love them. That's why they're my favorites. Before I get into these though, make sure you leave your top 5 Black Mirror episodes in the comments below, because I would love to know which ones are your favorites. Maybe we share a few, maybe we don't share any. Either way, I cannot wait to see your top 5s. And if you're new here and this is the first video of mine you're watching, I think you should subscribe. That's just my personal opinion. You're into Black Mirror, I'm into Black Mirror. There's clearly some darkness in both of us, maybe a little bit of hope for humanity as well. So we should stick together. Make that red button gray. All right, let's start with number 5. And for me, that is Bandersnatch, the choose your own adventure Black Mirror story. Bandersnatch is just something else. I have not been this obsessed with an episode of a TV series, essentially, I guess, anthology series, in a very, very long time. I've been watching videos about Bandersnatch. I've been reading articles about it. I have been wondering what ending people got and how they got there. I've been looking at charts. It's been a little weird, to be honest. Here we have a young man in the 80s developing a game based on a choose your own adventure novel that he loves, and that proves to be a complicated task. We, as the audience, get to help him with some decision making. I went through such a range of emotions trying to help this guy out. I was genuinely trying to find the best outcome for him. And if you've tried Bandersnatch, you know that there are points where that becomes incredibly difficult. And I have been so upset with myself because I have made a choice that seemed wrong, which, by the way, there are no wrong choices in this. There are so many possibilities and so many options to where this can lead that don't worry. If you don't like something, you can go back and make a different decision. But I felt responsible for this guy. I don't know why. And yeah, it was an experience for me that I don't think I'll ever forget. I hope we get more of these choose your own adventure things now on TV in general, and hopefully in Black Mirror in particular, because not only was this a really cool experience, but also it had some interesting ideas about free will and about fate and about kind of choosing your path and where you can go wrong and how a small thing can lead to big consequences. So yeah, Bandersnatch was amazing. At number 4, I have San Junipero, and I know this is a favorite for a lot of people. I was so in love with this episode, and this is probably the only episode, I think it's the only episode, that made me think, this is actually a technology that I would like in my life. This seems really neat because this has to do with uploading your consciousness to a specific reality where you can interact with other people who have uploaded their consciousness, maybe your loved ones if they are there for this technology. That's great. That's a great deal. And you can go there when you're alive. You can go there after you die. Pretty great if you ask me. On top of all of this, this is a beautiful love story, and the 2 lead actresses are just so great. They have an amazing chemistry. I believed every word they said. They were perfect for these roles. This one is definitely not as heavy as a lot of other Black Mirror episodes, but it was a nice break from all of that depressing, dark stuff. And it's not that it doesn't have anything to say. It definitely does have some things to leave you thinking. It was just a little bit more uplifting than what you would normally expect from Black Mirror, but not in a teen movie way like another episode I've already talked about. At number 3, I have USS Callister. This was so cool. I did not know what to expect from this episode. I just saw the thumbnail on Netflix. It looked like Star Trek, and I got a little bit worried because I'm not huge on Star Trek. I don't hate it or anything, but I don't get a lot of Star Trek references or anything. So I was a little bit worried I wasn't going to get this episode, but it worked out great. It's a wonderful story. It is dark. It gives you a lot to work with. It is an adventure. It is a thriller. It is messed up. It has to do with cookies in a way and with some virtual reality. There's a lot going on in this episode, and it is a favorite for a lot of people for a reason. Plus, if you're a sci-fi fan who loves all of that spaceship, other planets type of stuff, you are definitely going to enjoy this one because it not only has references to Star Trek, but to classic sci-fi in general. And that's just the beauty of it, along with other things. All right, guys, only 2 episodes left. I wonder if you have guessed which my favorite is, but the runner-up is Nosedive. This one is just so close to home, it is not even funny. And if you think that rating people and having that rating affect you in real life and being forced nice just because you want other people to like you is way off from our reality and not really a thing that could happen, well, you clearly haven't been on social media lately. I could probably make an entire video just on this episode and why I love it so much. Because first of all, Bryce Dallas Howard, oh my god, what a performance. So perfect for this role. Loved her. Number 2, the overall style and the color palette, just so perfect for what this is trying to relate to the viewers. Third, obviously, the social commentary that is just top notch in this episode. And I'm not ranking these reasons or anything. I'm just coming up with them as I go. Fourth, the dark humor of it all and the character types are just so good and so perfect. And finally, fifth, the ending is so cathartic. This is probably the most cathartic episode out of the entire Black Mirror series. At least that's the one that comes to mind first when I think about that. And it's definitely one of my favorite endings of the entire series as well. So yeah, Nosedive was so close to being my number 1 episode. But the number 1 spot, as I am sure you have figured out by now, belongs to Be Right Back. That episode actually kind of broke me. I'm not gonna lie, this is a difficult episode to watch. It has to do with dealing with the death of a loved one and how no matter how smart the machine is that is trying to bring you comfort, it can't really replace that human connection, and also ways in which it can help. It also tackles how companies prey on emotionally vulnerable people and how it's completely shameless, how they're going to try to sell you things just because they see an opportunity. There's more to this episode. I don't want to ruin it, but I love it so much, and it broke my heart unlike any other episode of Black Mirror. I was sitting there, I am not exaggerating, the credits are rolling, Of course, my camera died in the middle of that emotional story. Camera, you are a piece of technology and you cannot handle my human emotions. And that's why you can't replace me. Right, where was I? I was sitting there watching the credits roll with tears rolling down my face, just complete mess. And I've been crying for who knows how long because this whole episode is just so difficult to watch. And you're thinking, why is this your favorite episode, Mariana? Because I want the stories that I'm experiencing to make me feel something. And if it really speaks to me, if it really touches my heart, then I know it's a favorite for me. I will never forget this episode. This was the most powerful experience of this entire series for me. And a big part of that were the amazing performances once again. I wish I could say more about it and give you specifics, particularly from the second half of the episode, but I don't want to spoil it. I'm trying to keep this video as spoiler-free as possible, but just know that when you're about to start this episode, just get ready for it to completely shatter your emotions. And that's it for this ranking video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I have never done one of these before, but this was kind of fun. So I think I'm going to do more of these in the future. Let me know in the comments below what you want me to rank. I don't think I'm going to rank more episodes of a TV series because it's just a lot, but maybe some seasons of long series or some directors' filmographies or some specific themes or character types. I'm gonna think about it. You let me know if something comes to mind in the comments below, and I will see what I can do. Of course, don't forget to let me know what your favorite Black Mirror episodes are, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much to all of you for watching. I appreciate every single one of you. A special thank you to all of my patrons for supporting me, and an extra special thank you to the patrons whose names are on the screen right now. But I hope all of you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, turn on notifications, follow me on social media, all of that stuff that you should not do according to Black Mirror. And I hope you're having a wonderful day. I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye.